Well, good afternoon. I guess it is afternoon. Better check, yes. This is a part of the democratic process. When the City Council passes a bill, we have a public hearing. They have hearings when they write the legislation, and they talk about it, and they negotiate with the administration. Everybody's got some input, and they come up with some bills, and if I don't like them, I veto them, but if I do like them, we hold a hearing, and then some people, you're invited to speak if you want. And a few times in the last 12 years, I've actually changed my mind after listening to what people say, so it's not total waste of time. My staff was never happy each time I did that, but that's okay. And then I sign the bills, and if anybody has any particular interest in a bill, we take a picture or two and give you a pen that was used in the signing process. So this is part of something. And I will say this just so you know, New York City government is much more democratic and has much more common sense than the state governments around the other cities, as far as I know, and state governments and the federal government. Our city council actually reads and works on every bill. There's nothing done in the middle of the night. And that's not true the way the state legislature works. Most of the times they pass bills, nobody's read them other than the leadership. They don't want any input from anybody, so they don't. But here, and it's a lot of it's thanks to Speaker Quinn and the city council people that have been here for a number of years. It is, I think, a much more honest kind of government than any other level of government. The others are fine, that's the way they work. But this really is something that I think New York City citizens are well served by, and they deserve a lot of credit. What I will now describe is each of these bills, and then we will ask for comments. Are we doing them all at the same time or individually? Okay. First of the 8 bills before us today is introductory number 1107-A, and if anybody wants to know how these are numbered, I have in 12 years never been able to figure it out, and I've got 90 days left, and at this point, I don't care. Sponsored by council members Rose, Koo, Capel, Palmer, Vallone, Brewer, Chin, Jackson, Barron, and Williams. This legislation codifies an important pilot our administration is undertaking to collect organic material from our schools and residential areas throughout the city while suspending regular leaf and yard waste collection citywide during this time. City residents produce a tremendous amount of waste that is sent to landfills. However, much of this waste can be recycled, reused, or processed. And the organics collection pilot will issue collection bins to 1 or 2 family homes strictly to collect organic materials such as food scraps and yard waste material on their normally occurring recycling collection day. By June 1st of 2014, the pilot will be expanded to 4 collection areas in different boroughs with the goal of reaching 100,000 households, and will continue to at least July 2015. The Department of Sanitation, represented by its Commissioner, John Doherty, is behind me, will also establish a school organic waste collection pilot program that will reach at least 400 schools in all 5 boroughs by January 1st, 2015, provided there is sufficient room within collection trucks. The Sanitation Department will provide the same collection service to residential buildings with 9 or more units located in the school zone. And beginning June 1st, 2014, the Department of Sanitation will issue a report every 6 months on the amount of organic material diverted and include this information within the annual recycling report. By January 1st, 2015, and there'll be a test on all of this afterwards, so I hope you're taking notes, the department will issue a study on improving community composting and make recommendations to increase participation and improve the program. By October 1st, 2015, if your eyes haven't glassed over, they will issue a report on the performance metrics of the organics collection program included within this bill. Regular schedule for leaf and yard waste collection will be suspended until July 1st, 2016, while the organics collection pilot continues to reach additional areas throughout the city. And I would like to thank the Department of Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty and his staff, along with my Office of City Legislative Affairs, for their work on this bill. I also thank the City Council for approving this legislation. We'll now turn to the bill's sponsors and other elected officials who may want to speak, and then the general audience, but we typically give the Commissioner the first right. Mr. Doherty, you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the Speaker and the City Council, of course, the Mayor, for signing this bill. I mean, this is a major step in recycling in this city. When you consider this city has over 3 million thousand tons of waste we have to get rid of every year. Every time we can recycle a ton of that.
How much?
3 million. 3 billion. No, 3 million. 3 million.
3 million tons?
Yeah, over that. About 3.2, I think it is. And it's going down because people are recycling. But we have to get it even down lower so to recycle more. But this is probably the biggest step forward in recycling this city since we started the paper recycling a number of years ago, back in the late 90s. And I think a lot of it has to do with the public themselves. I mean, we in sanitation, the city, can go out there and supply the cans and educate the people and get the material collected. But it's the individual person in their kitchen, their household, that has to do it. And I always say 85% of a success in recycling is really the people in New York City, that they get involved and they do it, and they realize how they're improving the environment. So I want to thank you, Mayor, for getting this through, and it's all part of the Mayor's sustainability program throughout the city. And of course, I want to thank Ron Gonen, our new Deputy Commissioner for Sustainability in New York and in sanitation. He's doing an outstanding job on playing a major role in progressing with the food waste and compost recycling in the city. Thank you.
Good. Councilman?
Thank you. Sure. First of all, I wish to associate myself with the mayor's opening comments when he first came here. They were very, very gracious, and I thank you for that.
Because of you and this guy, and a lot of others, in all fairness. You have
Thank you,
made
Mr.
this
Mayor.
city better.
We
certainly
have.
In ways we should all be proud of.
Sure. But we certainly follow your lead when it comes to the environmental stuff. It's been really, really terrific. With regard to compost, I just want to give I certainly wish to associate myself with the good remarks made by the commissioner, who's served the city for more than 50 years. So John Doherty is terrific, and it's a wonderful man. I want to give a special shout out to Eric Goldstein, who goes back to the 1989, first recycling bill, and all the good work that NRDC and all the advocates have done. And just a special nod to have an appreciation of when the Department of Sanitation took over, started to do recycling. They were all of a sudden in the education business. So the Department of Education educates like 1.1 million school children or whatever it is, but the Department of Sanitation has to educate 8 million people in how to recycle. So it's weird to contemplate that the Department of Sanitation educates 8 more times the number of people than the Department of Education, which is to say this is a massive undertaking because, like the commissioner said, it's really up to the people to do it, and that can only happen with good education and good people, and they've really come through for the city, and I'm very appreciative of this bill. I'm not the prime sponsor of it, but I just felt I had to say that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman, would you like to say something to us?
Intro to 98?
This is for
okay, you didn't go to
different
that.
one.
Okay, but still in comment.
And to speak on this, thank you, Eric Goldstein, Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC. Sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The Natural Resources Defense Council strongly supports this legislation. As you've stated, it would require a continuation and expansion of the existing program that you've set up for food scrap collection and yard waste collection. 25% or more of the residential waste stream is contained in those organics, and so if we can actually succeed in these pilot projects in taking that out of the waste stream, we will not only cut the cost to city taxpayers who have to send this to distant landfills, we'll cut climate change emissions from global warming gases, and we'll transform the way folks think about food waste and yard waste into thinking about it as valuable commodities. So we want to thank you. What you and your staff have done in the last 2 years on recycling and composting is truly remarkable. We appreciate all the good work of Cass Holloway, of course, Commissioner Doherty, and Ron Gonen, Deputy Commissioner. You've been a partner on these solid waste issues for many years with the City Council, and on many solid waste issues, Speaker Quinn has been a true leader, along with Chairman Gennaro and Chairman Tish James. So we appreciate their good work and your good work and the good work of all of your staffs. We know there are still 3 months to go. We hope we'll be back here for yet another celebration on issues relating to solid waste, in particular enactment of legislation to advance commercial composting and to phase out the use of polystyrene food containers in New York City. And we thank you again for what we hope will be your signing of this legislation.
Looking forward to that. Would anybody else like to add anything? If not, I will sign the bill.
Today's the second.
How do you know that exactly the right number?
He has some practices in there. Thank you.
Okay, the next 6 bills before us today are a product of the Building Resiliency Task Force, an expert panel convened after Hurricane Sandy to outline steps to fortify New York City's building and strengthening building standards. Buildings and building standards. Their report includes 33 recommendations that address resiliency in a wide range of buildings, including commercial buildings, multifamily residence, hospitals, and 1 to 3 family homes, and offer options to help existing buildings become more resilient and strengthen the city's building code and zoning resolution to ensure future construction meets the highest level of resilience. Introductory number 1086A is sponsored by Council members Fidler, Chin, Comrie, Dickens, Gonzalez, Kuh, Landa, Mark Viverito, Mendez, Rose, Van Bremer, Rodriguez, Brewer, Jackson, Williams, Barron, Gennaro, and Mealy. This legislation requires that new toilets and faucets in buildings be able to operate without an external supply of electric power. These buildings will be required to have at least 1 lavatory faucet in a bathroom or toilet room that can be operated normally with an internal power source for at least 2 weeks. It can be powered either through manual operation or built-in battery backup. Introductory number 1088A is sponsored by Council members Gennaro, Brewer, Chin, Comrie, Fidler, Gonzalez, James, Kuh, Capel, Landa, Mark Viverito, Mendez, Palmer, Rose, Van Bremer, Rodriguez, Barron, Eugenie, Greenfield, and Mealy. This legislation requires a study and pilot program on the possible use of permeable materials on roadways and sidewalks to be followed by a report to the City Council on the results of the pilot within 120 days following the conclusion of the pilot. Introductory number 1090A is sponsored by Council members Ignazio, Chin, Comrie, Fidler, James, Kuh, Landa, Mendez, Richards, Rose, Brewer, Jackson, Mark Viverito, Williams, Barron, Eugenie, Gennaro, Greenfield, Mealy, and Van Bremer. This legislation requires the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to conduct a study in consultation with the Department of Buildings on the effects of wind on existing buildings. A report will be submitted to the Mayor and the Speaker of the City Council within 2 years. Introductory number 1095A is sponsored by Council members Nelson, Chin, Comrie, James, Mendez, Richard, Rose, Brewer, Jackson, Mark Viverito, Williams, Barron, Eugenie, Gennaro, Greenfield, Mealy, and Van Bremer. This legislation requires the creation of a manual on flood construction and protection standards. The Department of Buildings will create a manual explaining in detail the flood construction and protection requirements and standards applicable in the city. The manual should include a description and explanation of materials requirements, specifics on what equipment must be protected from flooding, and the application of the flood construction and protection requirements. Introductory number 1098A is sponsored by Councilmember Richards, Chin, James, Kuh, Capel, Lander, Mendez, Rose, Brewer, Jackson, Mark Viverito, Williams, Barron, Eugenie, Gennaro, Mealy, Van Bremer, and Crowley. This legislation requires that buildings in flood-prone areas be equipped with devices to prevent the intrusion of sewage from the public sewer system. During severe storms, backwater from the public sewer system can cause overflow in buildings located in flood zones. This legislation will require backwater valves to help prevent this. Backwater valves and other automatic backflow devices will also protect plumbing systems and components that have openings below the flood level elevation. Additionally, new systems and components, including plumbing fixtures, will be required to be elevated above the floor flood elevation specifications. Introductory number 1105A is sponsored in conjunction with the Mayor by Council members Gennaro, Brewer, Comrie, Kuh, Capel, Richards, Vallone, Chin, Barron, Lappin, Eugenie, Greenfield, Van Bremer, and Williams. This bill assigns to the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability the responsibility of planning for resiliency and climate change, and beginning in 2015 and every 4 years thereafter, OLTPS, which is the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, will include in their plan that is submitted to the Mayor and the Speaker of the City Council a list of policies, programs, and actions that the city will undertake relating to resiliency issues. And I would like to thank the Department of Buildings Commissioner Robert Lamandry, Department of Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sedek-Khan, Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner Carter Strickland, Sergei Manovitsky, Director of OLTPS Daniel Zarili, Director of Resiliency at OLTPS, and their staffs, along with Brian Flynn from our Office of City Legislative Affairs for their work on this bill, on these bills. I'd also like to thank the City Council for approving this legislation. And now we will turn to our City Council first.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your administration's great response to Hurricane Sandy. You had been in the business of preparing for climate change years before Sandy hit, and that is to be commended. I think that's what put us in a position to be ready when it actually did hit. And you also made the city the world leader in urban environmental sustainability, and so we already had that construct to do all the things we needed to do for Sandy. And I think this really represents one of the finest moments of collaboration between the administration and the council in making the response to Sandy. I just want to put that on the record before I talked about the two bills that I was directly involved with. One, I want to thank Chair Vaca for. That's Intro 1088A that came out of his committee with regard to permeable pavement. It's a concept we've been talking about for a long time to try to see if we can get it right with regard to stormwater mitigation. And so that was all the buzz regarding permeable pavement up until Sandy hit, and we saw that that the great role that it could play not only in mitigating routine stormwater types of issues, but also helping the city in these big storms, which we sadly will be getting more of in the future. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council, and also Chair Vaca for putting that through his committee. And the next bill is 1105 with regard to the, which we worked on with the administration with regard to having within the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability a Director of Resiliency. This is an office that is already there, but thanks to this law, it will be there in perpetuity and will report on an ongoing basis. And I thank you for both of these bills, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your leadership, as always, and it's been a privilege to work with the national, if not the worldwide leader in urban environmental sustainability. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Jerry?
I very much want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank my colleague Jim Gennaro for being a leader on so many of the environmental issues. We are in a climate change way of life. I represent a waterfront community where we have many low-lying areas in Throgs Neck and City Island, and we were fortunate when it came to Sandy not to see the destruction that happened in Queens and Brooklyn and Lower Manhattan. We still suffered, but in comparison, the storm took a turn. So it doesn't mean that tomorrow we could have another challenge at our front steps. And so much of what we're doing here at the council and with the mayor's office is preparing as best we can. So this legislation, one of which was passed through my committee, and the other bills that Councilman Gennaro spoke about, I think are indicative of the council's commitment, and I thank the mayor for being the environmental mayor. Thank you.
Councilman?
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but just wanted to thank the mayor for his commitment, of course, to the New York City, but also to the people of the Rockaways, who I represent, in terms of making sure that we build much bigger and much better, and that we have protective measures in place to ensure that our community is ready the next time a storm of this magnitude comes, even to a greater degree. Intro 1098, which I sponsored, amends the plumbing code to prevent the backflow of sewage in special flood hazard areas. I'll just say, in the whole point in layman terms, is that we want to keep sewage flow out of city streets and flood water out of our buildings. And while we may not be able to stop Mother Nature's wrath, we must ensure that we are doing everything humanly possible to minimize the impact she will have on us in the near future. So I just want to thank you for your commitment and look forward to continuing to work with everyone on this. Thank you.
One more thing, Mr. Mayor. I forgot to give a great shout out to Samara Swanson. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. Okay. Samara. I had that written down to say that she does wonderful work for the Environmental Committee as the counsel to the committee. She was deeply involved in all this legislation. I hope you come up and sign the bill with us and everything.
Good. And Brad Reed from Councilman Fiddler's office. Brad?
I'm tall. Councilman Fiddler is a primary sponsor of one of the bills in this package, and he couldn't be here. He just asked me to say a few words. The bill that he's primary sponsor of is the one we affectionately call the toilet bill, which, and in the press releases, we have our fun and we do our puns. We're setting the American standard. We're flush with good ideas. It's great. It's the joy of working for the city. But the truth of the matter is that the worst disruptions happen not when the things we expect to fail, but when the things we think will work every day we take for granted, when those fail. And what do you do when your toilet's powered by electricity and your sink is powered by electricity and the power goes out? And you have a high-rise building filled with people and there's not a single working toilet. So this bill and all the bills in this package, honestly, are about answering those questions before they become questions and solving the problem in advance. So on behalf of Councilman Fiddler, I want to thank the Building Resiliency Task Force, the council members, the speaker, and hopefully the mayor in a minute. Thank you very much.
Good. And tell Councilman Fiddler, none of us thought he had that kind of sense of humor. And I'm not so sure he does. You are the one that does, and whether you have a job when you get back, I don't know, but we all love you for it. If nobody else has anything, we'll sign the bill. You're great.
We say that the people are flushing, thank you. My constituents.
Excuse me, Stills.
Good on.
Can't see it over here. Can you guys come over to the side
Okay,
here?
just come over to the side where
Go
you meet.
wider.
We'll just expand, you guys. Okay. Right.
Okay,
Great.
one more.
Yes, thank you.
The final bill before us today is introductory number 974A, sponsored by council members Vaca, Lander, Palmer, Rose, Lappin, Arroyo, Brewer, Chin, Eugenie, Ferraris, Gentili, Jackson, James, Koo, Capel, Koslowitz, Mendez, Reyna, Rivera, Williams, Rodriguez, Mark Viverito, Crowley, Gonzalez, Levin, Van Bremer, Weprin, Garodnik, Barron, Gennaro, Greenfield, Mealy, and Ulrich. This bill requires employers to provide a reasonable accommodation to the needs of an employee for her pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical condition that will allow the employee to perform the essential duties of the job. A reasonable accommodation for this purpose is an accommodation that can be made without causing undue hardship in the conduct of the employer's business. Aggrieved employees can seek relief in court or through the city's Commission on Human Rights. In addition, this bill requires the Commission on Human Rights to create a written notice regarding employees' rights related to pregnancy for employers to post in the workplace. And I would like to thank Commissioner Patricia Gatlin from the Commission on Human Rights and my Office of City Legislative Affairs for the work on this bill, and also the City Council for approving this legislation. Want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This bill is an important bill. I want to thank A Better Balance, the organization that came to my office to indicate that what we often took for granted was often not the case. We often took for granted that when a lady was expecting a child and working, that accommodations were made, that an employer would allow that person to have an extra bathroom break, to have water or a bottle of water near their workplace. Perhaps if they're in retail, to sit down for a while if they have a 7 or 8 hour shift. And then we found that these accommodations, while often assumed and often appropriate, were not often the case, and that there was not any legislation protecting people who needed this type of protection. And we had powerful testimony before our committee from someone here, Angie Welfare, who testified as to her own particular case. So by putting this into law, we're giving protection to women who did not have protection before. This legislation was backed by the National Organization of Women. Many women's groups as well came forth to indicate that we did have to put this into law. So I want to thank my colleagues. I thank the Speaker. I thank the Mayor. I think we've gone a long way to recognize a problem which most of us assumed did not exist. But if you ever watch that old Odd Couple show, you know, you never assume. Because when you assume, and I don't want to go further, this is all on microphone, you make a little bit of a case out of you and me. So I'll put it that way. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I look forward to you signing the bill.
Good. Councilman?
I just want to thank Jimmy and the council and the mayor's office for doing this. We had our last child. My wife was 43 years old. It was a tough pregnancy, and it was hard to get these kinds of accommodations. Just a wonderful thing. I just wanted to a very, very special thank you to Jimmy and the mayor for getting this done.
Good. Councilman?
Just want to say thank you, Mom, for putting pressure on my wife and I. Next year, we will try to have a child, your second grandchild, but at the same time, at least my wife will be afforded the opportunity to have accommodations. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Anybody want to add anything? It's hard to top that.